Good evening, everyone. And good evening, Candy. Yeah, what? What do you want? Come on up. Yeah, you're a good girl. Candy's loaded for bear. All right, spit. Shikapaw. Let me get it. I haven't even got it out of my pocket yet. Okay. Shikapaw, lay down. Speak. Speak. A loud bark. Thanks for watching. It is now Sunday, May the 26th, and 11:33 p.m., so late Sunday evening. And I'm going to go back to a topic I haven't covered for a while. I haven't done a video on politics specifically for a while. Politics usually enters into a lot of my videos, but it's not the central theme, not the central topic. This one will be specifically on Canadian politics and focusing in on Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Canada's joke of a prime minister. There you have my bias right up front. I do not like Justin Trudeau. I am loath to admit it, but I have to. It's a fact. In 2015, I did vote for Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party. I apologize. I wish I could take it back. I can't. Not that my one little vote made a significant difference. In that election, Trudeau polled up around 43% of the vote nationally, which is enough to get a majority, which is what he got. But in the two subsequent elections to that, the Liberal share of the popular vote was only in around 32%. And in both elections, both our most recent election in 2021 and the one in 2019, where he was returned with minority governments each time. In both those elections, Trudeau lost the popular vote. More Canadians actually voted for the Conservative Party than voted for the Liberals, but it didn't matter because the Liberals managed to win more seats. And explaining why is a little convoluted. It's not overly difficult, but it's just the case where in Alberta, in Saskatchewan, in Western Canada, when the Conservatives win, they win by big margins. They can win with 60, 65, 70% of the vote. And the Liberals get just a tiny sliver. But in Ontario, when Liberals win, where they win seats, they win by getting 35, 36% of the vote. But whether you win by 70% of the vote or whether you win with just 35, 36, either way, it's still one seat. So the way it's framed by political commentators, they'll say that the Conservative vote is very inefficient. If it was spread more evenly and not so concentrated in the West, we would have at least a Conservative minority right now and would have had since 2019. But it is what it is. And if you look at the polling numbers right now, and personally, I do have a degree of confidence in them. There's a site, a website called 338.com. 338, that number references the number of seats in our House of Commons, and you have to have 50% plus one, so you need 170 seats basically to form a majority government. And what that site does is it takes the polls that are published by Nanos, Ledger, Main Street Research, different polling organizations, and it weights them on the basis of recency. The one that was done just a week ago will have a higher weight than a poll that was done a month ago. And two polls conducted around the same time, if one is a poll of 2,000 Canadians versus another one's only polling 1,000 Canadians, 2,000 that one will be given greater weight. And likewise, the creator of this site weights the polling organizations, Angus Reid, Nanos, Main Street, these different polling companies, Leisure. And based on their historical accuracy at election time. How accurate have they proven to be? And those that are proven to be more accurate get their polls have greater weight given to them. And it's an algorithm, and what it does is it averages out these polls and it gives a projection. And in the last 3-4 elections, it's been pretty darn close to being, it's like 98%, 97% accurate as a predictive tool. So I have some confidence in it. And it's actually, when you read our horrible mainstream press, CBC, CTV, Global in this country, they'll often cite as per 338.com when they're publishing, where things stand in terms of the polling numbers. And right now, and for the last, you're going back into August, September of 2022, that's when from August right up until August, September of 2022, the Liberals and Conservatives are tracking very close. And then once we got into September of 2022 and continuing on right to the present day, there's a big separation with the Conservatives going up and the Liberals going down. The Conservatives are polling in the range of 40 to 45%. The Liberals are polling between 20 and 25. And to my mind, that is way too high. I cannot believe it that there are as many as 1 in 4 Canadians who would be still willing to mark an X next to a Liberal candidate after the performance of Justin Trudeau and everything he's done since 2015 when he came into power. By the time we have our next election, he will have been in power pretty much 10 years. And our next election has to happen by October of 2025. There's the Fixed Election Date Act, or the Fixed Election Date Law, that stipulates that an election in Canada has to take place no later than October 2025. We could have one sooner. I don't see that happening. It could. I'm not saying it's impossible, but to my eyes, to my mind, the chances of it happening are pretty darn slim, because Trudeau's not going to dissolve the legislature, ask the Governor General to call an election when he's polling at 20-25%, because that's a recipe for being kicked out of power, and then he knows he would have to resign. Sharunian's here. Anyone that says I got nothing to lose is dangerous. And I believe that's a quote of Trudeau's. He's now trying to frame himself. They're constantly spinning with him. And, the issues are too important. And, he's trying to make himself appear noble and virtuous. And, he's as phony as a $3 bill. But he's a horrible actor, but some people are not very discerning and they think he's genuine. I could go on and on about everything I hate about Justin Trudeau, from his phony biodegradable juice box water bottle thingies that don't exist, that he says he made up a product. Many will be aware that he was asked by a reporter at a press conference type event about what he was doing to help the environment. And he said that he was drinking water instead of out of plastic bottles, out of a biodegradable juice box water thingy that, again, doesn't exist. He made it up. He's told Canadians that, I don't give much thought to the economy. And everyone knows his famous line of, how budgets balance themselves. He can just take a hands-off approach, but he doesn't take a hands-off approach. He's got his hands all over everything, and he's destroying this country. Slowly but surely, incrementally destroying this country in so many different ways. And in the broadest context possible, what I'm going to say is the reason that 1 in 4 Canadians, as many as 1 in 5, 1 in 4 Canadians would still mark an X next to Trudeau's name or the name of a Liberal candidate is because Trudeau is masterful at creating problems and then offering the solutions for them. So he creates the problem, or he presents a problem, and then he presents himself as the only one who can offer a solution. And there are, unfortunately, there's a large portion of the Canadian government or Canadian population that expects the government to solve all their problems. They look upon the government as their savior. One example I'll give you is housing affordability. But before I do, Sandy writes, twitchy Freelands, and there's something in the way, is the talk of the town lately. Oh, she is just weird with her, her hands, and it's like she's going through detox or something. It's unbelievable. I've openly speculated, said, what is it, a vaccine injury? Wasn't she smart enough to fake it? Or to get a placebo, get a saline solution in her arm? What is with that? And I'm going to be pejorative. I'm going to use some. I do my best to try and avoid profanity, but I don't know what's up with that broad. That will automatically have people saying that, oh, unacceptable. I called a woman a broad, but twitchy is just, could anyone be worse than Trudeau? I think she might be the one. I think she could be worse than Trudeau. I was talking about, an example of how Trudeau creates problems and then offers the solutions. And one area is housing affordability. Housing affordability, especially in the major centers, Toronto, Montreal, Calgary, Vancouver. I mean, it's insane housing prices. And you don't have to have a PhD in economics to know the dynamic, the way economics, the relationship between supply and demand. And what has Trudeau done? He's basically got it's almost as bad as the US southern border, where they're pouring in from Mexico and just inundating the United States. It's almost like that. It's pretty much an open door policy, and we're talking about a million Canadians, or a million, not Canadians, a million immigrants being allowed into the country annually. There was a quarterly period in 2023, a 3-month period, where something like 400,000 individuals came into this country from abroad or from other countries. And for a nation of just 40 million, and we shouldn't even be 40 million, we're growing so much because of this open door immigration policy, and it's destroying this country slowly. Chinese water torture, to use another pejorative term that'll get me in trouble, and I don't care. But it's just happening slowly, incrementally, and is just laying waste to this country. And I say that recognizing that Canada, absolutely 100%, we need immigrants. This country has always needed immigrants. We're a massive landmass with a very small population relative to the size of our country. However, it has to be noted that Canada, I think it's 80 or 90% of our population lives within 100 miles or 100 kilometers of the US border. I've heard it described as North America is a bottle of milk in the days before pasteurization, and that Canada is the cream on the top. It used to be that way. And we need immigration in this country. My Irish ancestors on my mother's side of the family, we were O'Malley's. And we were born, and there was racism back then. I think it's my great great grandfather changed the family. This is the maternal side. Changed the family name from O'Malley to Maley, from O apostrophe Malley to just Maley, Maley. Anglicized it, made it English from England as opposed to Irish, because everyone said the Irish, they're nothing but a bunch of lying, thieving, drunken idolaters, bunch of Roman Catholics typically. Although I don't think my mother's family was Roman Catholic. I think they were Church of England, but who cares? Sheriff of YouTube says just deport all scab workers. And we all came legally. I don't. Stephen Harper, when he was Prime Minister of Canada, he did a debate at one point, and he talked about. I'm going to put this in air quotes, not my favorite, but old stock Canadians, and honestly, that didn't sit well with me. I don't like differentiating. I've spoken before about tribalism and this idea, you're not part of my camp, you're not part of my tribe. And so hearing Harper talk about, that doesn't sit well with old stock Canadians. That's snobbery to me. A Filipino immigrant family, I'm not better. As long as they come here legally, and so long as Canada's immigration policy is geared toward bringing into Canada the immigrants that we need with the skills that we need, we do need an open door, but we've got to have checks and balances at that door, ensuring. So what's happening? What's happening with 400,000 in 2023? They announced that over a 3-month period, 400,000 new people, new immigrants came into Canada. That's like 1.2 million a year, which is an insane number. And now we have a housing crisis. Now we have unaffordability in the housing market. And of course, now Trudeau has created this problem by having this open door. And now he wants to offer the solution for it. He makes the problem, he offers the solution. You look at inflation and the rise in cost of living, and people can't afford to go to the dentist anymore, and they can't afford anything. I'll solve that problem too. I'll make things massively unaffordable for you through immigration and other policies, increased levels of taxation, but I'll solve the problem. Here, I'm going to raise the price on gasoline, on groceries, on everything through this carbon tax nonsense, which I'm going to get onto. And then I will, but don't worry, I'll help you survive, because you're going to need me to survive the situation that I put in place. Trudeau's policies, his government's policies, is making life unaffordable in this country. And then in order to just get by, you need the government. You need those checks coming in, your carbon tax rebate, your GST rebate, all these rebates. And all it does is just create a new bureaucracy, and our government grows bigger and bigger and bigger, and Canadians get poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer. And Trudeau needs to be gone. I'm not 100% convinced that Poilievre is. I think he has his flaws, certainly. And I wonder to what degree is he beholden to interests that don't align with my interests and the interests of Canadians. But if it's a choice between Trudeau and Poilievre, I'll take Poilievre every day of the week and twice on Sundays. Poilievre's a far superior choice. In the last 2 federal elections, I voted PPC, People's Party of Canada, Maxime Bernier. And Frank Vaughan was the candidate in my riding in 2019, and then a kid named Nathan Lang. And I actually did some campaigning for Nathan Lang And I just checked the results, and we were at 5 or 6% in the first one. In the first election, 2019, Frank Vaughan, the PPC candidate in my riding, got 2% of the vote, less than the Greens. And in the most recent election, 2021, the PPC candidate got up over 5% and actually got double the support of the Green Party in this riding, in the riding where I live. But the biggest one, and and I think this is where you get 1 in 4, 1 in 5 Canadians who are still dumb enough to vote for Trudeau, is because they bought into this climate change nonsense. And there aren't enough voices out there talking about it. It's not a great topic of conversation around the in the break room at work or whatever. Whether you're on the golf course, whether you're in the in the lunchroom at work, whether you're talking to your neighbors, talking about climate change. You talk about the weather, but people don't want to talk about climate change. But I think we have to, because you have to combat this profanity alert. We have to combat this bullshit narrative of man-made global warming. I have often, on this channel, I've often spoken to the fact about how there are climactic cycles of warming and cooling that can last 2, 3. They can last as long as 500 years, 300 to 500 years. So typically around 400 years is the length of a climactic cycle. And I've talked about how from around 950 AD until about 1400 AD, there was a period called the medieval warming period, and how the planet heated up to such a significant degree that the Vikings established permanent settlements in Greenland because it was a green land. The ice sheets had pulled back significantly. And then how around 1450, in around that time, those settlements had to be abandoned because climate changed and we went into a period called the Little Ice Age. If you go onto Google or DuckDuckGo or any of these search engines and type in, when did the Little Ice Age end? It actually says 1850. 1850 is, multiple sources will say that the Little Ice Age ended in 1850, and that is significant. And the reason it's significant is because when we look and we hear constantly in the press, and they say today is the warmest day, this was the warmest May 26th since record keeping began. When did record keeping begin? Sometime in and around 1850. That's when they started keeping records on temperature and climate. And so they say, it's the hottest day, hottest week, hottest month, hottest year on record, going back to 1850, 1860, when we had just started, we just come out of what is called the Little Ice Age, so temperatures are very low. I mean, to a degree, it is like trying to determine what your day is going to be like based on the first 10 seconds after you get out of bed. It's too small a data set to make long-term projections on. And yet that is what so-called climate science does. And what Trudeau is beholden to an agenda, this UN SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, which are really all they are. I put it down. To my mind, it's fascist. There are elements of communism, but it's primarily fascist, and it's the corporate world, the Bill Gates type individuals, George Soros, Rockefellers, the uber wealthy, those with all the money, power, and influence in the world. They they want you and me and the rest of humanity, whatever is left of us after this great reset gets rolling, and it's already rolling, but once it really gets rolling, whatever is left of humanity, they want us to be the corporate property of this uber wealthy corporate class. will be the property, and the role of government will be simply to hold our leash. And Trudeau is their little puppet. And we've got to get rid of him. But unfortunately, there isn't a mechanism by which to get rid of them. But when talking to people, and you're coming across this 1 in 4, 1 in 5 of the population, quite often these individuals they're convinced that because the media has told them that you're right. I mean, you're open, you're inclusive, you're this, you're that, you're wonderful. So they're quite proud about caring about the environment and the electrical, or the, what do they call it, hybrid vehicle, or their Tesla fully electric vehicle. And oh, I'm doing my bit to save the planet. You're doing nothing. You know, even if carbon is the big bad boogeyman that everyone makes it out to be, China, India keep bringing more coal-fired hydroelectric generation online every month. There's more carbon going into the air constantly, and now there are reports talking about the greening of the planet. And why would the planet be greening? Not because of any of these stupid policies that are just making us poor. It's because carbon is plant food. And so the more carbon gets released into the atmosphere, the more plant food, because that's part of photosynthesis. They take in carbon, emit oxygen. Carbon is not the big bad boogeyman. I think we need to talk about ecology and the environment. And, you know, we want to have clean air, clean soil, clean water. But this concept that we're destroying the planet is just a fool's game. And the corporate world is all in on it. Google is all in on it. The major media corporations are all in on it. My video will get flagged. There'll be a little disclaimer at the bottom directing you to look at the IPCC, you know, and this is the science that you should pay attention to, because these are computer modeled simulations that cherry pick which data points to focus on out of thousands, and they'll pick a few dozen out of thousands that prove that climate change is real and that it's human caused. The result is predetermined. They want to prove that human anthropomorphic climate change is real. And so in order to do that, any data that doesn't correlate to their conclusion gets thrown in the trash. And this is something we need to talk about with our friends, with our neighbors, with our family, with our coworkers, with everybody, and trash the living tar out of Trudeau. A guy so dumb it takes him an hour and a half to watch an episode of 60 Minutes. I mean, part of the reason I publish my jokes, you know, I hope you can tell them better than I can. I tell them better when I am talking to someone, and there's a face you can see and you can gauge a reaction. But if anyone has any comments, the chat is on. Sharunyan's chimed in. Sandy has. Sheriff of YouTube. If anyone else has anything to say, or if you guys who've already chatted want to add to your commentary, please do. I just find the world depressing a lot of the time, and being stuck with numbnuts as prime minister of this country is just crazy. And the biggest thing I think we have to do, I mentioned in my last video how I find in a social context Canadians are too conservative. We don't want to offend, and the media presents this image that the liberal viewpoint is holding sway. If you go on to Twitter, you'll be given this impression that everyone's scared to death of COVID still and afraid of long COVID. And they create this digital illusion of what the popular discourse is saying. And we can't win the battle on Twitter, not in this age of algorithms and artificial intelligence with just, for all we know, and I'm convinced, a large majority of those accounts are simply bots, and they're creating this digital illusion. But when the rubber hits the road, like in the by-election that just happened a few months ago up in Durham riding, which is the eastern edge of the GTA, includes Bowmanville and that area. They had an election, they had a by-election there, and the Conservative candidate won with damn near, I think it was like 50% of the vote. And the Liberal candidate had like 20. And it shouldn't even be 20. Tank it even further, because if Trudeau's polling numbers got down, if the Liberal Party went down to 10-15%, I could envision there being a caucus revolt. The caucus is all the sitting members. Trudeau, I think he's got 160 or so sitting Liberal MPs, and that's the Liberal caucus. And these guys they've got a sweet gig. They're making probably $200,000-$300,000 a year in wages and benefits. And a lot of them know that they're going to be out of work when the next election comes along. And they don't like that idea. A lot of them, this is their first term. They haven't qualified for that lovely gold plate pension plan, which I'm sure is what convinces many of them to come on board. Jason King came on saying, "Happy Sunday, Gordon, just listening, doing chores." Hey, that's the best way to engage with my content. Then you don't have to look at me. But at any rate, so Durham region, 50%, in and around 50%. I think it might have even been over 50% voted against him. And so there's a Liberal who won't be. Now that seat was held already by the Conservatives. That was Aaron O'Toole, the former leader of the party. That was his seat. So that's a pretty safe Conservative seat. But there are Liberal members sitting at that caucus table right now who know that come the next election that they're going to be out of work. And there are likewise other individuals who know, well, I've got a chance. I could win. It's one of these, it's a toss-up seat. But goodness knows, Trudeau's weighing me down. Now, I'm sure many of them are saying, don't come near my riding. I don't want to see you. I don't want you campaigning near me. I don't want to be in a picture with you because you're a loser and you're dragging this party down. Virtue Signal side, haven't seen you for a while. Not seeing my chats. No, I'm not either. And I don't know, Virtue Signal side, what you're, when you write in the comments field, sometimes the username comes up as something different from what what you wrote. I think mine is just my name, Gordon Causey, but otherwise it's part of an email address I have, English Frog. So I'll either show up as my name or English Frog. They're both the same. They're both me. But I haven't been seeing your chats. And that's the thing with this online world, with the digital world. We can't win. We can't win. The money, the power, the control that is held in the digital sphere and in the media, we can't beat it. But we can beat it face to face. And that's where Canadians have to get out of our somewhat conservative mentality, our social conservatism, where we don't like, I don't want to talk politics. Start talking about politics. Start talking about climate change and what a crock it is. Yes, the climate is changing, but when you go to the coldest period, compare everything, and only start measuring from the end of the Little Ice Age, it's going to skew the data. Yes, things are warmer now than when I was a kid. I spent 2 winters, 1975, winter of 1975-76, and the winter of 76-77 in Burlington, Ontario. And the snowbanks, it's that situation where if you're driving, you got to look around the snowbank. It's dangerous. The snowbanks were so high. Does that happen now? No, we've gotten warmer. We've been in this period, this warming period, and it waxes and wanes. But broadly speaking, the overall trend going back to 1850 has been warming. There have been periods of cooling, but the overall trend is warmer. And so things are not going to be the same, but we've gone through this before. Miss Christie, Virtue says, getting censored like mad. Miss Christie is on. She's wondering the same. I do think there is censorship. I had been trying to respond to Sojourner Didymus, a viewer I have who's been on for a while. I think his name is Thomas, and he's in the Netherlands. And I was trying to respond to a comment he had, and it just wouldn't populate. I kept answering, and it wouldn't show up. It would say reply, try and click on and see, okay, did what I write, did it get posted? No. So even, my own channel that I create, my content that I put out, and then I have to put up with flags down at the bottom because I refuse to buy into this notion that carbon is the big bad boogeyman and the planet's going to be unlivable in 10 years unless we basically sacrifice our children and the people living today for some future generation of people who haven't even been born yet. We're sacrificing our kids today for children who haven't even been born yet. The insanity of this world is beyond belief. And yes, Sharunian, censorship is real, and that gives you an indication of the stakes. That gives you a very clear indication about how much attention and focus and energy is being put on pushing a false narrative. Remember COVID. COVID came out of lab, censored. No. It was from a bat in a wet market in Wuhan, China. And anyone suggesting anything else, censored. It was so vitally important to push that false narrative propaganda on the population for what they were selling. And what that ultimately ended up being was the poke that Justin Trudeau forced Canadians to get. And we can never forget that, never forget what he did to the hardworking Canadian men and women who went to Ottawa to protest, to engage in their constitutional right, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech. They had their bank accounts seized. He was acting like a third world dictator, which is Trudeau's mentality. Catching up. Miss Christie says that her first comment about carbon tax might have been removed. Wouldn't surprise me. The weather will be gooder because I'm paying more in taxes. And Trudeau has created a situation now where that 1 in 4, that 1 in 5 of people believe that, there's a movie called $1 Million Baby. I wonder if anyone has seen it. It starred Clint Eastwood. He directed it. Morgan Freeman, and I believe Hilary Swank. And I think she won the Oscar Best Actress, or maybe not. But I know she did win a Best Actress award. And the movie is about boxing, female boxing, women boxing. And Hilary Swank's character is, I'm going to use another pejorative term that will get me in trouble with YouTube, but I don't care. Hilary Swank, her character was a genuine piece of white trash. She grew up in a trailer park to a welfare mom. She was working as a waitress, and she wanted to box. And she went to Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman, who trained fighters. And even though she was about 30 years of age, they agreed to train her. It turned out she was very good. And she became a title contender for the world heavyweight or the world championship, whatever weight class, world championship boxer. The character's name, she was Irish. So he sold that, and she became a big deal in England. He called her Macushla, which is Irish Gaelic, and it means my darling, my love. And anyway, so the movie's called $1 Million Baby because she ends up amassing about $1 million in prize money, and she buys her mother a house. She's like, Mom, I bought you a house. And her mother's like, you shouldn't be doing that. I'll lose my welfare. What about my welfare? Welcome to the mindset of a lot of liberal voters. Well, what am I going to do with climate change? And I need my carbon tax rebate and my GST rebate, and I need Trudeau to pay for everything because everything's so damn unaffordable. Well, why is it so damn unaffordable? Trudeau's put policies in place to make life unaffordable for Canadians so that we are reliant on the government to just get by, to just scrape out an existence. And we need to talk. We need to, whether you're at church, whether you're picking your kids up from school, don't be shy. I think me having spent 10 or so years, nearly 10 years, growing up in the US, I have some American sensibilities. And so I'm not shy about expressing my opinion, and I don't care if I step on someone's toes. And then Sharunian says, YouTube community guidelines policy removes comments. Big shock. Miss Christie, yes, just checked my son's phone. It was disappeared. Betty Zoom, hey, from Niagara, my old, well, not my old stomping grounds, but that's where I was born. I've mentioned that before. Port Colborne, Ontario, which is in Welland County. Betty Zoom says, she's a snake. Who? Is that Twitchy Freeland? Virtue Signal side, and to be in their debt. Oh yeah, we're debt slaves. Yeah, and this is the system that Trudeau, and in fairness, it's not Trudeau. Trudeau's not smart enough to run an ice cream stand. He's got some very powerful, very wealthy, very smart individuals pulling his strings. He's just an actor. That's all he is. And, how did he become prime minister? His last name was Trudeau. If his name had been Smith or Causey or anyone's last name other than Trudeau, he would have been he never would have had a seat in the House of Commons. He's ridden on his father's coattails his entire life. He's accomplished zero in his life outside of leveraging off his father's name. And man, oh man, he should be banned from Canadian politics. Someone should have to have accomplished something in of themselves in order to, aspire to the position of leadership of a major political party in this country. And Betty Zoom, yeah, it is scary. Virtue Signal side writes the money changers. That's to whom Justin Trudeau is beholden, and he'll be gone, barring something unforeseen. The only thing is a month is a lifetime in politics, and we're a year plus away. May, June, July, August, September, October. We're almost a year and a half away. Normally, it is normal in Canadian politics. Minority governments typically last a year and a half to 2 years. That's their lifespan. we've been stuck with Trudeau since 2021 because he knows that if he went to the polls early, he's toast. Just catching up, Betty Zoom writes, put the Canadian people at risk. Virtue Signal side talks about Carney, governor of the Bank of England and formerly governor of the Bank of Canada. Mark Carney, I can't remember his first name, but I know that's to whom you're referring. Unfortunately, I think the system is broken. And just to bring this back to a faith-based, it's a Sunday, and I think everyone here knows my Christian faith. Pardon for the little bit of swearing I did, but there's a passage in the Bible where it says, beware of false prophets, beware of false Christs, beware of false saviors, beware of false messiahs. And I think there's a tendency in this world for people to want to seek for a savior, a messiah, someone to rescue them. And I know that many, during the COVID era, everyone wanted all this garbage that was going on to come crashing down. And many said Trump will send it crashing down. Others, look to Maxime Bernier or Randy Hillier or other voices within the so-called freedom movement. But I'll tell you, there is only one savior. There is only one savior. And if you're looking and thinking that Donald Trump is going to send everything crashing down, or Pierre Poilievre or Maxime Bernier or Elon Musk or whoever, you're going to be sadly deceived because they're part of the machinery. I even think Trump is part of the machinery. I think there are parts of the machinery that are better than others, but the overall machinery is beastly. It's a beastly machine. And get on the path and seek out a church, seek out a community so that you can interact with people not online, but face to face and in person. This is a poor substitute for real human interaction. Close the tablet, shut down your cell phone, flip down the laptop, get out. And a great way to do that is in a faith community, and know that when you go into a faith community that it is not going to be perfect. It is going to be filled with people who are as broken and as fallen and as lost as you are. And they may need you as much as you need them. It's about, we're called to live in community. This type of interaction, this is pseudo interaction. This is pseudo relationship. Real relationship comes from being in community with people, in our places of work, with our neighbors, and faith is such a huge part of that. Just reading up on the last few things. Betty writes, why is it, Gordon, when the convoy was here, I called the military to help our people. They said to call your local police. The military, the Canadian Armed Forces, are a branch of the federal government. So when you're the military does the bidding of the government. It's their military. When I was in the Army, you learn there's things called lawful orders. And as a soldier, you're required, it is a crime. It goes against the military code of conduct to disobey a lawful order. And that's part of the reason I got out in September of 2021. I put my request to leave the military in December of 2020. Once the COVID jabs were authorized, I knew. Didn't have to have a crystal ball. I knew they would be forced onto the military. I can't believe that they were forced on. You want to go to school? You want to play hockey? You want to sit down and have a cup of coffee in Tim Hortons. I can't believe it got that far, but I knew the military. I knew it would be forced on military members. So in December of 2020, I put what is called a voluntary release in. At that point, it wasn't mandatory. So I didn't have to say, I'm getting, why are you leaving? Or why are you requesting a voluntary release? I didn't have to say, well, I'm not going to get that jab you're forcing, because it wasn't forced at that point. They mandated it in August or September of 2021. And by the time they did that, I was already out, because it takes 6 months, give or take, for a voluntary release to work its way through. It's got to go to your sergeant, to your warrant, to your major, to your colonel, to your light colonel. Then it goes to Ottawa. And then over that 6-month period, once it was all said and done, yeah, I got the approval from Ottawa. Yes, you can leave, and got out. So this tells me why we get no help from our soldiers. Yeah, you might from individuals, but the chain of command is, your COC, your chain of command dictates. And God help the individual who goes outside of that, who either steps around their chain of command or doesn't do what the chain of command says. Nicholas Wojciak says, go capitalism. Amen. It's the best system in the world. It's not perfect, but it's the best there is. It's better than all the other alternatives. Betty Zoom, the WEF line, she's citing, you will own nothing and be happy. Yeah, right. Nicholas, go capitalism. To the WEF and there, you'll own nothing and be happy. Betty Zoom, people give them money, shut their traps for a while, I hear. Money is not the answer when there is none. The Canadian dollar is, we live with fiat currencies, and a fiat currency, it basically means the value of the money in your wallet and in your bank account it's all notional. There's no intrinsic value to it. There's no gold or silver or anything backing up the value of our currency. It's based simply on perception of value. It's like when Nortel was trading at $140, $50 a share, even though the company had never earned a single dime of profit. But because there were people willing to pay you $140 for a share of Nortel, that was its value. It was based on what the market set. That's the way our Canadian dollar is. And I'm not going to predict that the monetary system is going to collapse, but if it ever did, I could understand why. Reading on. Virtue says, you could feel it was MOTB. Mark of the beast. I think you're referring to the jabs. There's a passage in Deuteronomy where it says that an instruction to the Israelites that they are their devotion to God is to be as a frontlet between the eyes and as a mark upon the hand. And if you think about that in representative language, what does it mean? A frontlet between the eyes. Well, this is where our thoughts come from. And if it's between the eyes, it's also what we focus on. So, have God front and center in your heart or in your mind, and, be aimed toward him as a frontlet between your eyes. And then as a mark upon the hand, the hands are what you do when you're, engaging in things, engage in things that are godly, that are aimed toward the highest possible good. And so there's that representation of a frontlet, as a frontlet between the eyes or as a mark upon the hand. And then you get into Revelation. I think it's Revelation 13. Correct me if I'm wrong, or if anyone knows. Virtue signal side references the pineal gland, which is situated right about there, frontlet between the eyes. The pineal gland is said to be something of your third eye. It's, think of it as your sixth sense, your ability, call it extra sensory perception, ESP type power, if you will, intuition, things like that. But the mark of the beast, again, I think it's Revelation 13, that no one will be allowed to buy or sell in the marketplace. Basically, you're not going to be able to participate in society unless you take the mark of the beast, either on your forehead or on your hand, pretty much echoing what is in Deuteronomy. And Satan is the great imitator. God, the great I am, Elohim, Jehovah, Hashem, is the creator. Satan is the imitator. So Satan imitates that which God instructed, through Moses in Deuteronomy, about as a frontlet between the eyes and mark upon the hands. And now it's, hey, if you want to participate in the marketplace, if you want to buy and sell, well, got to get that mark upon your hand, got to get your that mark between on your forehead. I don't think it's a literal mark. That's my interpretation. I don't think it's a literal mark. I think it's a representative mark. I think it's symbolic about having us think on the beast and having us work for the beast. Hand, mind, heart, mind, body, soul. Are you going to give it to God? Or are you going to give it to the enemy? And we know what they've done in places like Davos, Switzerland with the WEF. We know who they are working for. They are not on God's side. Listen to Yuval Noah Harari if you want, and he'll tell you straight out. This idea of an invisible man, he belittles the notion of God. He takes it down to the most simplistic grade school level understanding. Oh, the invisible man in the sky. God is much bigger than that. Do not redact something as there are no limits. You're trying to simplify it and make it sound stupid and ignorant. That's what Yuval Noah Harari sounds like to me, stupid and ignorant. He is a smart man. He's got an intellect, smarter than me. But next to the creator of all things, he's in for a reckoning. And Virtue Signal Side is suggesting some reading for me. Dialogue with the Hidden Hand. Who's the author, if you don't mind me asking, if you know? Dialogue with the Hidden Hand. Sounds a little bit like Adam Smith. Adam Smith had this concept in his The Wealth of Nations about the invisible hand in the market directing things. Air is full of radiation. A lot of thoughts come to your head when I do talks like this, when I listen to talks like this. And Virtue Signal Side says of this dialogue with the hidden hand, it was a script found in a forum called Above Top Secret 2008. I'll look it up online. It's a text. It's not necessarily a book. Okay. I'm going to look this up. But anyway, that's, I'll keep it under an hour. God bless. Thanks for watching. Who knows when I'll do the next one? See what happens in the world. Something's always coming up. But I really enjoyed the one I did a couple days ago on Jordan Peterson. And in fairness, the reason I wrote for that one, I didn't say exactly what I had meant to say, but the reason I framed it the way I did in the subject line, is Jordan Peterson a Christian? Is Jordan Peterson a prophet? Is that I'm playing a bit of the algorithm game myself, guilty as charged. I figured a subject line of that description might attract some eyes because Peterson's a big name. And there are a lot of people who are questioning, is he a Christian? Is he not a Christian? And ultimately put a final bow on that video from a couple days ago. I have to work out my own salvation, as Paul writes, in fear and trembling. Peterson's salvation is his own business. But anyway, cheers to you as well, Virtue Signal side, and cheers to everyone. Thank you. Can't believe so many people came on and were chatting. And get out there, trash Trudeau as much as you can. Be loud, be bold, take him down. Maybe we can send those poll numbers crashing even lower. And especially if you live in Ontario, because Ontario is the battleground that'll decide the election. Whoever wins Ontario will win the election. Right now, though, it's looking pretty safe for a Conservative majority. And yes, Miss Christie, got to play the algorithm game. All right. God bless, and we'll see you in a few nights. Thanks all.